Happy Monday, Building Science Geeks. It's me, Mariana Pickering from Emu, here for another Monday B.S. Building Science. Today, we are going to dive into the topic of load versus demand. Comes up a lot when we're talking about heating, can also come up with cooling, but really energy load versus energy demand. What's the difference? And kind of how does that conversation come up in the passive house world specifically, or in extremely high performance buildings? So let's start with just some simple definitions. The energy demand is the amount of energy that a specific service of the building requires over a typical year. So for example, the heating demand is the energy that the building consumes over a year for the heating to be supplied. In a passive house, that heating demand is capped at 4.75 kilo-BTU per square foot per year. The energy load, on the other hand, is the maximum amount of energy needed for that building service to provide comfort at a particular worst case scenario. So again, demand is over the entire year and load is in a specific scenario. There's an analogy that our lead trainer, Enrico Bonilauri, likes to use in our CPHT course, where he compares it to going on a road trip. If you're going on a road trip and you fill up your car with gas, the energy demand is the amount of gas you use over the course of that entire road trip, versus the load is the amount of gas that your car uses when it's on one particularly steep hill headed up the Rocky Mountains. So how this comes up in the passive house world is in a couple of different ways. In the FIAS standard, which is the PHI US standard here in the United States, there are both demand and load numbers that you have to hit in order to be certified, and those numbers are dependent on climate zone. In the international PHI standard, which also is used here in the United States, and it's the one that we're more familiar with at Emu, given that we work internationally with this same standard in a ton of different countries and climate zones. In the PHI standard, you can choose either to try to hit the demand number, 4.75 kilo-BTU per square foot per year, or the load number, 3.17. Most passive house professionals will tell you that it is easier or more reasonable, or makes more sense to hit the demand number rather than the load. Designing and building that building to hit that demand and load number changes by climate substantially, however. So in the passive house world and in extremely high performance buildings, the conversation about demand is a little bit different because you're talking about such a significantly reduced demand compared to code built buildings. And that is through all of the energy efficiency measures that come along with the passive house standards. So things like extra insulation and being thermal bridge free, being airtight, using high performance windows. All of that basically reduces the demand. One of the phrases we like to use a lot is conserve before compensate. That's kind of the mantra in passive house, right? Conserve that energy before you then have to compensate with additional consumption. Because of that, when we're talking about trying to hit the demand and load numbers for a passive house, the things that have a much bigger impact on the conversation are things like hot water heating and appliances. A lot of times, professionals that are new to passive house don't believe those numbers. And frequently, one of the biggest bottlenecks in executing a passive house can be either the MEP at a commercial scale or an HVAC installer at a residential scale who is incredulous of the numbers that they're looking at. So thank you for joining me today on this Monday BS. We've got a big announcement going out in our newsletter later today, but we will be hosting our first East Coast Passive House Builder Bootcamp training in partnership with EcoCore, which is a really cool company out of Maine that does passive house level prefab panels. So they're going to be hosting us at their facility in June 6th through the 10th, to anybody who wants to come up and do a week-long boot camp and get certified as a passive house professional. So please just let me know if you have any questions about that, or you can check it out on our website. I'll put some links below. And otherwise, any topic suggestion you have for next week or the coming Mondays, please leave that as well. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks. Bye.